Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Judy Monroe, and I'm the chair of the Best in Class Organizing Committee. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening on behalf of the Toronto chapter of the Financial Executives International Canada. And thank you for joining us to honor this year's winning team of the 3rd annual Best in Class Invitational Case competition. For those of you who don't know us, the Financial Executives International, we're a nonprofit organization of senior financial executives, of medium to large companies. We have over 16,000 members in North America, over 2,100 members in Canada across 11 chapters, and Toronto chapter is our largest chapter with over 700 members strong. We are primarily a network and advocacy organization, but we also have a national conference. We present the CFO of the Year awards. We have a research foundation. We hold monthly dinner meetings and technical sessions, and we have a monthly magazine. The Best in Class competition is our latest initiative, now in its 3rd year. Best in Class is an initiative which I spearheaded now almost 3 years ago when I was then president of the Toronto chapter of FEI. We had an embarrassment of riches when I took over as president. We had a surplus of cash and we were a nonprofit organization. So I approached Schulich and Rotman with the idea of launching the Best in Class competition, and they enthusiastically embraced it. And I formed a volunteer committee of FEI Toronto chapter members to launch Best in Class in 2006 at the Schulich School of Business, with 4 business schools competing: Schulich, Rotman, Queen's, and Ivey. Last year we expanded the competition to 8 MBA schools from coast to coast, and this year to 10. The initial objective was to strengthen the relationship between FEI and the academic community, to introduce the business school students, our country's future leaders, to our organization, and to lever our many corporate relationships to provide students with a unique educational experience that they could not get in the classroom. Our competition, Best in Class, is unique. It's live, it's real time, and it's meant to simulate the challenges of everyday business. It's by invitation only to our top-ranked schools in the country, and it's an opportunity for Canada's best and brightest to showcase their talent, and hence why we call it Best in Class. I'd like to now introduce you to Rick Powers. Rick Powers is the Associate Dean, MBA, and Masters of Finance program for our host school, the Rotman School of Management. Rick Powers, after receiving his MBA and LLB from Queen's University, worked as a corporate lawyer for Smith Lyons, Torrance, Stevenson & Mayer, now Gowlings. He later served as corporate counsel for Honda Canada Inc. before joining the University of Toronto in 1992. Rick is currently the Associate Dean of the MBA and Masters of Finance programs at the Rotman School of Management. He's a recipient of numerous teaching awards. His areas of expertise include corporate governance, ethics, business and corporate law, and sports marketing. Rick is an academic director of the Director's Education Program and the Government Essentials Program in partnership with the Institute of Corporate Directors. He also teaches in Rotman's Executive MBA, MBA, and Executive Education programs. In the past, he's been extensively involved in both the Bachelor of Commerce and the Bachelor of Business Administration programs at the University of Toronto. He's a director of several not-for-profit organizations and frequently comments on legal and governance issues in various media across Canada. He told me to point out that he spent 12 years at Queen's, and that's how long it took him to graduate. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Rick Powers from Rotman.
Thanks very much, Judy. I think the introduction may be longer than the words I have to say tonight. First of all, on behalf of our Dean, Roger Martin, who's unable to be here tonight, he's traveling actually in India right now, I'd like to welcome the students from 9 great Canadian business schools, and as well, obviously, our own students from Rotman. Welcome, and we're very pleased that we had the opportunity to host this event this weekend. These events don't just happen, obviously. It takes a great deal of organizing. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the judges and corporate hosts who are affiliated with FEI. They've done an amazing job. On behalf of everyone, thank you very much for your cooperation and your support. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Judy Monroe. It was really Judy's initiative that got this competition going, and we were talking this evening, and we hope to expand it. She has expanded it right across the country, and I think it would be great if we could have some international schools as well attending this competition. We have really the best and brightest students from all our schools in this room this evening, and we're very pleased, as I said, to have the opportunity to host this. Last night, McKinsey hosted a reception for the people in charge of the MBA programs at the 9 schools. And I have to say, first of all, to thank McKinsey for that. But during the evening, they also introduced a new study that they had done on competitiveness in Canada. And they asked how the business schools could help. And one of the things was obviously events like this and competitions like this to give our students further training so that when they enter the business world, they can best reflect the needs of Canada, the needs of their organizations, and have the ability to communicate those needs. It was a great experience, and it was wonderful also to meet the various people in charge of the other MBA programs across the country. And I just want to say thank you. It was a great sharing of ideas. One of the things we talked about, we end up oftentimes working in our own little ivory towers, and if we could cooperate more between the schools, I think we'd have a better impact on the business world and in helping Canada as well. So I hope these events like this and competitions like this can foster better relations across the country between the various business schools. That's really all I have to say. I just want to say thank you very much. We really enjoyed hosting this event. We hope that you have enjoyed it. I do want to compliment the Rotman team for the work that they did. All I've heard is compliments all day and yesterday from the work that they did, so thank you very much to the Rotman team. Congratulations to all the participants, and I'm as eager as you are for 2 things, dinner and to find out who won this competition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. And as those of you who know me, we try to keep to a very strict schedule here, and we won't keep you very much longer before dinner. But I do have a very special guest here this evening. I took a look at Osgoode Hall, and I walked through as we were doing our planning for this dinner this evening, and there is such tremendous history in these hallowed halls. And we thought it would be wonderful to share a little bit of that history with you. So we invited a very special guest this evening, John Hansberger, who has written a book on the history of Osgoode Hall. I just want to tell you a few things about John before he will tell us a few things about the history. John was admitted to the bar in 1950, and to date he's combined the practice of law with teaching and writing. He's written several books and articles. His principal interests at present are bankruptcy, insolvency, and collaborative and international law. In 1967, he was appointed to Queen's Counsel. In 1986, he was awarded the first Law Society Medal. In 1998, he was awarded the Mundell Medal by the Provincial Attorney General in recognition of his contribution to legal literature over the past 50 years. In 1999, the Reading Room of the Archives Department of the Law Society was named after him in recognition of contributions to the archives of the Society. In 2005, he authored Osgoode Hall, An Illustrated History, which was nominated to the Governor General's Literacy Literary Award. And in 2008, he is still practicing, but tells me he should be retiring. And I just want to tell you, John and I had an experience with a wonderful mutual friend and my mentor, Ron McKinley, who is, they were best man at each other's wedding. And I've known John for over 25 plus years. And John and I had the privilege of working together on the Company Creditors Arrangement Act that was dusted off in Depression years in the early 80s. And we did it for the first time with New West Developments, and we had consulted with John. So it's been a long time, John. It's wonderful to see you again. And please, tell us a little bit about the history of Osgoode Hall.
Thank you. Judy said, first of all, no more than 5 minutes. So dinner can't be too far away. But Judy and I have known each other for a long way back, and our mutual friend, Ron McKinley, he was my oldest friend, and his father and my father were the best man at each other's wedding, and Ron was the page boy at my wife's wedding, so it's an incestuous relationship. But to get on with my 5 minutes, on behalf of the Law Society of Upper Canada, if I may be so presumptuous to say so, I welcome you here to Osgoode Hall this evening. The original hall was that in front of us here, and it was built and completed and first occupied on my birthday, the 6th of February, 1832. And it's hard to imagine at that time, the Law Society had something like 50 members all across the province, and it's hard to imagine how they could get together and had the determination and the ability and be able to get the cost to build this building. But as they say, that was 1832. The society, however, was not too unhappy when 5 years after the building was opened, the 1837 rebellion occurred, and the Army asked to lease Osgoode Hall for 5 years so as to have a garrison within the town. The rent was £500 a year, when the actual cost of the building was £3,350, 1 shilling, 1 pence. That's lawyers getting to work. So as a result of much hard bargaining, you know, the Army took over for 5 years. One of the interesting aspects of it, when the Army moved in, the 93rd Highlanders, who had been previously built in London, Ontario, came here. One of the officers who was billeted over here was a Lieutenant John Grogan, an Irishman. But before the regiment had moved here from London, he had entered into a liaison with the granddaughter of one of the first Chief Justice of the province. She followed her lover to York, and to the outrage of the entire community here in York, she spent a night here in Osgoode Hall with Grogan. This led to the first divorce in Ontario. They didn't know what to do. They had no divorce law, but you know, finally it was done. So the first divorce in Ontario was triggered her here. Ultimately, she gave birth to a boy, and then the two of them got married, and then they fled the province. But there was so little money in the early days of the province that separate buildings could not be afforded for the Law Society, a law school, and accommodation for the senior courts of the province. And really what makes Osgoode Hall unique in North America is that in one building there was built to provide these 3 functions. And having gone to law school here, it was fascinating. You could go to lectures for 2 hours in the morning, and you walked to the other side of the building and you saw the Court of Appeal sitting. And there was no other building, I think, in North America is like this. It's just because they were so poor, they couldn't afford separate buildings. Now, this room, it's called Convocation Hall. There's a convocation room over there. But this room was constructed 50 years later after the first one in 1832. It was intended to be an examination hall for their law school. But among the specifications included was that it should be capable of holding 80 students, and that it would be large enough to permit 5 feet between examination desks to minimize the cribbing and cheating that had been so frequent here before. Now, this makes me wonder whether the symbolism is appropriate to have your concluding dinner in this room where there had been so much cheating and cribbing. But I may say that I took lectures in here and I was called to the bar here. But to celebrate the opening of this room in 1882, just one day after my birthday, the 7th of February, there was a huge party here. It was called a conversation, being a very high-minded social gathering where couples walked around and discussed such academic subjects as the arts, especially literature, as background music was played by the glee clubs of the university. We're told that there were more than 2,000 people were in attendance that day, and I think if it happened today, the fire marshal would have had something to say. But then we're told that everybody had a great time. That party in 1882 was the first big social occasion since the 1860 party, and at that time is when the central part of the building was open, and the Prince of Wales was in attendance there. Now, this room, once it was built in 1882, became the dominant gathering place in the building, formerly fulfilled by our great library and rotunda. But I think of all the dinners and occasions that I've been here, one of the most elaborate of the recent ones was in 1998 when the American Bar Association met in Toronto. Its family law section was given a reception here. And it's hard to visualize it, but in the center of the room, there was a huge weeping willow tree. Went up 20 or 30 feet. And at each corner, there were other trees, not so large, and then the whole floor was covered with little cocktail tables and chairs to match. And there's nothing like it. Next day, they had an occasion for the judges, and all the trees went down. But talking about trees, in a week or two, we'll have a two-story Christmas tree go up in the corner down there, and that has always gone up every year. I think, too, of this room, the 100th anniversary of my firm was celebrated in part by a dinner here in 1989. 4 regimental trumpeters in their dress uniforms from the Royal Canadian Artillery, in which I served during the war, played a fanfare from the balcony up there as the guests walked in from upstairs. And later, they played a royal salute as a toast to the Queen was proposed. It was quite an evening. There are many interesting features in the room of it, which I can't really talk much about, except for 2. It is the flambeau and the stained glass windows. These 6 clusters of flambeaux, they came from England. They were formerly at the Middle Temple, and they were presented by the Middle Temple to the Law Society. Now, these flambeaux, they have fake kind of glass at the front to make it look like a flame, but they were used as torches. And in the front door of the Middle Temple, there was a rack, and these individual ones would be there. And lawyers attending, or judges attending a late dinner, when they came out, they would often take one of these things, like you used to take umbrellas from a club, and they were stuffed with hemp and tar. And then they were lit when they could go home in the evening. Sometimes a footman would often precede a coach or a sedan chair with a flambeau. And they were always brought back the next day, and they're still there. And it's a wonderful collection. Someone from the Middle Temple came over here a few years ago, and he said, "Gee, why didn't we ever give them to you?" They were in the process of remodeling the place, and they had neon tubes and all around it, took the place, and they said that was terrible to have given them here. The stained glass windows, I won't spend too much time, but they represent the largest single stained glass commission in Canada, and maybe farther. There's 10 windows, and they represent the body and symbolic form of the 4 millennium passing of time since the history of law. The old law is going back to Persian law on that side, and the Canadian law on this side. I don't know whether I got a minute or two of the time, but it was kind of interesting when the artist came in there, and those first 2 windows over there, he said, "We can't really have them there because there's a firewall out there about 8 feet, and we got to hide it." So what he did, he made the lower panes of glass very small and very rough, so you can't see through them. And the higher you go up, the panes become larger and larger. So having done it for the 2, he had to do it for all the rest. But many people were opposed to this when they thought of replacing these old windows. But once they went up, everybody claimed that they were responsible for having put them in here. But I could tell more about it. But to conclude, I think of several years ago, a friend of mine from Washington who was attending a meeting here in the city asked me to give him a quick tour of the courts when the meeting unexpectedly broke up early. And I took him to a couple of the courts next door. He was impressed with the greater civility he saw as compared with those in his own country. After going through a couple of courts, I brought him over here. And I finished the little tour by showing him around Osgoode Hall, after showing him the library, and this room, and the bencher's quarters in front, and all of its woodwork. with 175 years of polish, these lovely walnut thing. And he looked around and he said, "This building made the lawyers that you are." It was kind of quite perceptive, which made me think that Churchill said on the rebuilding of the House of Commons after the war that we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. Now, I had a friend and a former member of the Court of Appeal, and I always remember him, who once said, "I always felt better when I came into it and somehow diminished when I left." Thank you very much. Hope not more than.
John, thank you very much for that history of these hallowed halls. I have a small token of our appreciation on behalf of FEI Toronto Chapter. I'd like to present this to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Judy. Just one more comment that if people see here. Every day at noon, there's lunch served here, and it's served to the public. So any of you can come in at any time and have lunch and then look around. So I would recommend lunch here sometime. Come
also
early.
The best value in Toronto, I'll tell you, for lunch. Thank you, John. I think it's time to get on with the formal part of our evening. I think we've got an awful lot of anxious students who would like to know who is the best in class. Just before I get on to the announcements of our winners, as I think some of you can appreciate who are taking part over the last 48 hours of this event, it takes an awful lot of people for this to happen. And I've got an awful lot of thank yous to make, so I'll try to make them brief. But there are an awful lot of people who contributed to making this a very successful third annual Best in Class competition. First of all, I'd like to thank our founding sponsors, KPMG and National Bank, for having the foresight to support this groundbreaking event initiative and believing we could do it. And thank you, Lily, for your support in KPMG. It's, we wouldn't be here today if they had not provided their support. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Brendan Moore and McKinsey and Company, for your financial support, without which this would not have been possible. I'd like to thank our media sponsor, National Post. Our winners will be announced on November 12th in the National Post. You'll have your moment of fame, and you have the National Post to thank for that. I'd like to thank our distinguished panel of judges for the time they took from their busy schedules to be with us today. I think they did an outstanding job, and I don't think it was easy. I'd also like to thank our student participants, the true stars tonight, for their energy, their enthusiasm, and their inspiration. I'd like to thank our case company, Pacific and Western Credit Corp, for the courage to step up and be examined. And David, you're going to have to get rid of the plane. I hate to tell you. And I'd also like to thank the Rotman School of Management for the use of their magnificent facility. A special thanks to Deanne Sanders, our MBA Program Director, Katie Burrows, our Associate Director of the MBA Program, and Margaret Charles, the Event Coordinator. You did an outstanding job, and thank you for your assistance. And I'd also like to thank all the MBA school deans, the assistant deans, the faculty and alumni who have joined us tonight in support of their student teams. It is really gratifying to see all of you here to support the best in class. So thank you for being here. And I'd also like to thank all the FEI Toronto chapter volunteers who assisted with the logistics over the weekend. And last but not least, I owe a special thanks to my colleagues on the Best in Class Organizing Committee for their tireless efforts and hours over the last months and several months of organization, as you can imagine, that culminates in tonight. I'd like to call each of them up to the podium to join me, please, with a special thank you and a memento. Bill Hewitt, would you please come up to the stage? Frank Hayes. Leslie Marco, Noel Multipole, Eileen Tresher, we also have someone who a lot of you students particularly know, as we've been corresponding for many months, with Liz Bowell, our Toronto chapter administrator. Although she's not officially an FEI member, we think of her that way. We would not be able to do any of this without Liz's assistance. Liz, thank you. And I'd also like to thank Melissa Gibson, our official photographer, and ask her to put the camera down and please come up on the stage. Thank you, Melissa. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Sonia Lockyer. Sonia was actually on our winning team in our first best-in-class competition in 2006. And last year she volunteered to be part of our day, and she has volunteered again this year. Sonia, thank you very much. I just want to say I could not be more proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 3 years with our small committee of volunteers. Thank you all. I would now like to call upon my colleague Bill Hewitt, who now refers to himself as the other man in my life, to formally introduce to you the CEO of our case company, Pacific and Western Credit Corp, David Taylor.
Thank you, Judy. I'll be brief. To many of you, this will be the third time you've heard an outline of Mr. Case Company. This is a phrase I'm coining right now. We hope you've enjoyed Case Company. I'm introducing you to David Taylor, President and CEO of Pacific and Western Bank of Canada, which started out as Pacific and Western Credit, which was granted a Charter 1 or Schedule 1 bank license August 1, 2002. But the company goes back to London, Ontario, when David Taylor and a group of London businessmen raised some capital and made an offer to buy a small Saskatchewan trust company which had 20 million in assets, did a reverse takeover with a mining company, working with lawyers and securities laws to develop a public company. It didn't happen by accident. David started, he pointed out he was born in England, his parents moved to Cochrane, Ontario. His father was working at the time with the Ministry of Natural Resources. After going to Lakehead University and an MBA at University of Saskatchewan, he joined the banking world. He started big in the banking world. He started with Barclays Bank, Bank of Montreal, and I remember when I first met him, I think he was with Mercantile Bank, which is a very enterprising bank in Canada. Anyway, from a dream, when he worked at Barclays Bank, he worked in the cost branch area, and he developed computer software to reduce the cost and better manage the cost of running a branch bank. And with that vision, he decided that Canada was ready for a branchless bank. And it was with that inspiration that David Taylor took this tremendous opportunity to enter the banking industry personally with a group of London, Ontario colleagues. And of course, the beginning of Pacific and Western Credit as we know it. One of his colleagues was a dear friend of mine, Peter Lockyer, who was a Canadian barrister solicitor in this city, or rather in London, Ontario, and in Toronto. And Peter was chairman of the board for many years and one of the inspirations and guiding lights in developing Pacific and Western Credit, now Pacific and Western Bank. With that, as a quick background, I've introduced Peter as Mr. Case Company. I think also Peter, or rather David, is the inspiration I think all you MBAs would like to aspire to. David has been able to not only work actively and successfully in the business world, he's been able to live his dream. He has his own company. And in addition to that, as you learned in the last couple of days, he has his own toys. And one of his toys is a small airplane. And he's used this toy very effectively in developing a business and developing relationships with the Northwest Territories and the development of infrastructure projects in Canada's north. And it's been one of the more successful business lines in Pacific and Western Bank. Anyway, quick summary. Mr. Case Company, David Taylor, would you come forth and make a few comments, please?
Well, normally speaking, when a banker gets to a podium like this, you could put people to sleep in a hurry. There's usually not much happening in our industry that can keep you awake. It's been very staid over the years. But of course now, with all the drama and excitement, you're probably on the edge of your chairs wondering what's going to happen next with the banking industry. So when I was invited to participate in this project, I of course welcomed the idea, because we bankers are looking for ideas to deal with the challenges that we face, and having the opportunity to present our company to some of the brightest MBA students in Canada, I thought would be a wonderful way to hopefully get some ideas. Now, if any of you are thinking about asset-backed securities, they've already tried it. Forget that. We've had enough of that already. Pacific and Western, for those of you that don't know much about it, as Bill said, was built on a sort of a novel concept that we came up with in the early 90s, and that's that we could base a bank on a PC. Let me just turn that off. That's my mother. Doesn't want to turn off. Yeah, the idea was that it would be based on PC technology rather than mainframe technology, and that we could do away with the need for branches, and we would be so efficient that we could lend to a low-risk market, which included hospitals, school boards, municipalities, and such, and not have to take the additional risk that I didn't think was appropriate for a small bank. So that's how it came about, and it evolved into a Schedule I bank August 1st, 2002, and we sort of made the history books at that time, because I guess it had been 18 years between Canadian Western Bank getting its Schedule I license and ourselves. So that's how it evolved, and now we find ourselves in a situation where it should be wonderful for Pacific and Western, in that spreads have risen finally in our target market. For a few years, we found ourselves with hospital-type loans and school board loans with next to nothing for spreads. But recently, of course, much to the dismay of borrowers, the spreads have widened. Let me just find, I have a few remarks written for me here. And my colleague Tel has put them in a binder for me. Here we go. So we're here this evening, however, to participate in what is truly a remarkable challenge that for the Toronto chapter of the Financial Executives Canada has organized this year, the third annual Best in Class competition. I need to tell you that I have been amazed with the quality of this event as well as the quality of our business school students. I have participated in and listened to various presentations, and this group truly represents the best Canada has to offer. And we had a 60-minute session where I was peppered with 60 questions, so 1 a minute. Sharp minds and very inquisitive. For my colleagues in the audience this evening who are in the private sector, I'm proud to share with you that we not only have here a bright and talented pool of students, but just as importantly, a Made in Canada group. I can also tell you that they are the product of the best business schools, not only in the country, but ranking right up there globally. I hope you'll take the opportunity to get to know some of the students. You will certainly find a talented pool for future recruiting. Now, whoever said those remarks about the airplanes need not apply at Pacific and Western. Just be upfront about that. And for the students, just to let you know, you are indeed immensely vital to us as senior executives of public and private sector organizations. You will be our managers, directors, and senior executives in due course. It is our responsibility to provide you with all the support you need in order to prepare you to be our leaders for tomorrow. On that note, the FEI Canada has certainly done a tremendous job in organizing yet another very successful best-in-class event, and the work that Judy Monroe and her team have done needs to be acknowledged yet again. I would also like to acknowledge all the sponsors, the National Bank, KPMG, Brendan Moore, McKinsey, and the National Post, since they also play a very necessary role for any successful events of this magnitude. And of course, our business schools of Canada, which are preparing our next generation of executives, entrepreneurs, and public sector leaders. We are proud of the work you are doing, and we are grateful. Please keep your remarkable efforts. We need you, and Canada needs you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. We do have a small token of our appreciation for you, David, and your executive team. I know 2 of your team are here tonight. Barry Walter, Senior Vice President, CFO. Barry, would you come and join us on the stage? And Tel Montandrola, the VP Public and Strategic Initiatives. Tel, join us as well. Thank you very much to our case company. And I'm going to ask David Taylor if he'll assist me with the rest of our presentations this evening to our winners. David, don't go away. This, of course, is what we've all been waiting for the last 48 hours. Who is the best in class? Our judges had a very difficult task today. In fact, Leslie was quite late in getting over here. I'd wisely suggested she would be one that would held back so that we could start dinner. And indeed, our judges did have a difficult time, given the high quality and caliber of the teams that were competing today. And unfortunately, we'd love to have prizes for every one of you, but we can't. But I'd like to think of you all as winners. And we hope all of you go home tonight feeling rewarded by the experience you've had over the last 48 hours. So with that, I'm going to start by announcing our 4th place team in the Best in Class competition, and I'm going to ask you to come to the podium when I announce your name. In 4th position is Team Plato from the Sauder School of Business, Nick Drake, Joe English, Michelle de Montigny, and Judith Roop. Would you please come to the stage? Congratulations to I'd now like to call upon Michael Conway, CEO and National President of FEI Canada, to join me in the third place team presentation. Michael?
Thank you, Judy. Headlines too often are consumed by negative perspectives about business leaders, particularly in the post-Enron era. Now, this bothers me because it's inconsistent with my observation of the vast majority of Canadian businessmen and women who are honest, hard-working executives who add value to their stakeholders. Events like Best in Class show us that we have another generation of business leaders who will make us proud. Congratulations to all of the business teams for your excellent presentations. I'd like to express my thanks to three groups without whom this event would not have been possible, obviously. Our sponsors, KPMG, National Bank, McKinsey, Brendan Moore, and National Post. Our judges, who are too numerous to mention, but thank you very much for your wisdom and in the selection process. And last but not least, Judy, Bill, Frank, and all of the Best in Class volunteers. And now, for further suspense, Judy.
Oh my God, they stole the notes. I don't know who it is. Okay, our third place team. Ready? Team Einstein from the Haskayne School of Business in Calgary. Congratulations, Team Haskayne. Team Haskayne, Jason White, Alan Chen, Alexander Vantoff, and David Warkenstein. Congratulations. We're getting into the money now, folks. Third place team gets $2,500 to share amongst their team. Spend it wisely. Where's our official photographer? Would you like an official shot? You got one already? Okay. All right. That was our third place winners. Calgary. Now I just want you to know that is 2 years in a row that Haskayne has placed in the winning circle and 2 years in which they've competed. So congratulations, Haskayne. Well done. I'd now like to call upon David Kennedy, Partner in Transaction Advisory Services, Calgary for KPMG and Deputy Business Leader Advisory for GTA. David, are you here? Can you join me? David, would you like to say a few words on behalf of KPMG?
Never one to turn away the podium. It's been a long evening already, so I won't say too many words, but just how impressed I am with the quality of the presentations that we had from every single business school today. I was one of the morning judges, so I got to hear all 10 presentations, and that including getting up at 5 o'clock this morning so that I could appropriately prepare the case material myself. And I was just blown away by the quality and the energy and the spirit of the folks who presented today, and working with the other judges was also a pleasure. So thank you very much for that experience. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of KPMG, welcome and thank you. Cheers.
Okay, our second place team is Team Franklin from the Rotman School of Business. From the Rotman School of Business, we have Daniel Ludwin, Stefan Reed, Rob Hymas, and Tony Kalmakoff. Congratulations, Rotman. Our Rotman team takes away a $5,000 prize to share amongst them. Thank you. Michael, thank you. David Taylor, would you stay on the stage? Thank you. Exactly. And for what you've all been waiting for, our first place team. And you've probably already figured it out by now. But I'd like to invite Lily Shane, Vice President of Commercial Lending for National Bank, to assist with the presentation of our first place team, who gets the right to call themselves Best in Class. Our first place team, Team Archimedes from HEC, University of Montreal.
Great pleasure to represent the National Bank this evening and to give out the first prize to this team. Now I'm going to tell you that Fred Burke and I had a little bet running, and I said to him that I was probably the only banker in the audience. And when I heard this team present, I said to myself, you know, this is remarkable how they have gotten to the essence of this situation. And then I was further impressed when I actually spoke to the team and found out that they're all first years, because this is a one-year program. So I was really very impressed. And delighted to make the first place presentation.
Thank you. Just to add to that, I'm also particularly thrilled for HEC because this is the first year that we have invited them to participate in Best in Class. And I know they were extremely anxious about what they were going to anticipate here, but obviously they came well prepared and have done a fantastic job here today. So congratulations once again, HEC. Thank you, everyone. And I know there's a number of supporters from HEC Montreal who are here tonight to support their team, so you must be very proud. In closing, I'd just like to say congratulations to all of the winning teams. You've truly distinguished yourselves as best in class. And thank you to all of the student participants who contributed to another very successful best in class competition. Our student competitors demonstrated the qualities of business leadership that will serve them well in their future careers. And it leaves one feeling tremendous confidence in the next generation of our country's business leaders. Thank you all. Safe home and good night. I hope to see you next year.
Before you all break up, I'm going to hijack the microphone for a moment. Frank, would you join me on the stage here for a moment, please? As a single male, I'm fond of referring to Frank and I both as another woman in our life for the last 2 months. And I look down over the podium here at Mr. Judy Monroe and smile. Anyway, Judy, on behalf of the steering committee, on behalf of Financial Executives Toronto Chapter, FEI Canada, and everyone in this room, we want you to know how proud we are of your organization skills and what a great successful event. And as a token of our appreciation for all the hard work, and the coordination, and all the things you've asked us to do and made us do, we'd like to present you with this wonderful orchid.
Thank you. It's been a labor of love, as many of you know, but thank you, Bill and Frank. I could never have gone this far without either of you. So to the other men of my life, thank you.
And we don't end there. We'd also like to have Liz Boel come up. Well, Liz has been our secretariat. Whether you folks know or not, but Liz lives in Tottenham, Ontario, and this would not be possible without email. And Liz has worked tirelessly in terms of organizing all the flight schedules, organizing the banquet logistics, and so on. Liz, a token of our appreciation and respect for your great organization skills. And in absentia, the third woman in the life of Frank and myself is Thelma Pacheco. Thelma is David Taylor's executive assistant. And I'm down at a University of Western Ontario meeting on, I think, the 19th of November. And Thelma doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to buy the same orchid and sneak into the office and put it on her desk in London, Ontario on the 19th as a token of appreciation for all the hard work she did in delivering the Pacific and Western executives, their presentations, and all the hard work and cooperation we've had with them. Anyway, thank you all. It's been a wonderful evening. I turn it back to Judy, and just what a joy it has been to work with you all, and what a pleasure it is to create an event of this magnitude.
Okay, now you really can go home. Students, get some sleep, have another drink, and celebrate. It's been a wonderful couple of days. Thank you.